Over the last couple of years, there have been numerous success stories with crossover content. Instances of taking something beloved and expanding its reach into other mediums as a means to grow an audience. It's now become apparent there are many approaches that can be taken in the execution of expanding a brand via a TV show or movie. It will likely continue to become the norm with gaming's most popular AAA IP. It's now being observed on a completely new scale. As a result, The Last of Us will never be the same. Making TV shows and movies out of video games isn't a new concept, but often you're left with a feeling of wasted potential. These projects have a history of tumultuous production, and they don't happen behind closed doors. It was constantly documented for all to be aware of. Adapting video games to TV had become synonymous with disappointment. Uncharted's live-action adaptation was initially one of the biggest offenders of the public's belief that this could ever work. From its simple form as a greenlit project to the moment it arrived in theaters, 12 years passed. In those 12 years, it lost 6 directors, many scripts, and the faith of its fanbase. Old castings aged into new castings. It's not surprising that these are expected to fail. Regardless of the amount of misfortune that was gone through to get it made, it did come out, and it was very profitable. Uncharted as a video game had no new content on the horizon post the movie's release, nor was the movie a longer form piece of content, so its boost to sales was likely minimal. Much of what is currently happening and will continue to happen to The Last of Us has happened to Uncharted. Nathan Drake now means something entirely different to a group of people previously unfamiliar with his origins. If you Google who plays Nathan Drake, the answer might surprise you. Live-action adaptations have generated the most buzz, but it was in a variety of animated series where the needle had begun to move on expectation. 2017's Castlevania felt like a potential turning point for what could be done. It went on to have a very well-received 4-season run. Arcane's completely original narrative drove interest in animated adaptations of games through the roof. Its uncommon hour-long episodes and very stylized approach made for a standout effort. Naturally, Japan had their turn through the Edgerunners anime, where they did the heavy lifting in putting CD Projekt back into the public's favor. A much-needed turnaround in a post-Cyberpunk 2077 world. It came to the surprise of no one that the games that would eventually be adapted into TV or film were the ones chasing the idea of those mediums from the beginning. When Naughty Dog launched Uncharted Drake's Fortune in 2007, something began to stir in the industry. And then 2 years later, when its sequel Among Thieves was launched, everything shifted. The ripple effect caused by the benchmark that was set changed how people perceive the narrative-driven genre's viability. A similar parallel to what is currently happening with The Last of Us on HBO. Except rather than needing to chase a medium some say has already been surpassed, The Last of Us will serve as an attention shift, one of the same caliber we saw with Uncharted 2 14 years ago. While Uncharted was the true beginnings of narratives and games grabbing the attention of the mainstream, The Last of Us truly finished the job. Its impact is everywhere. The idea of adapting the game was originally in the form of a movie, however the game's length doesn't fit a movie runtime. Thus, after a chance meeting between showrunners, HBO was off to the races. The build-up to the show's launch is very different to what has been seen for any adaptation. If you played The Last of Us 10 years ago, seeing every demographic, games related or otherwise, speaking about the IP, it makes it feel like its footprint is about to 10x. All of a sudden, the general masses were excited about something you have had 10 years to settle in with. It's a pretty rewarding feeling, all things considered, but in its footprint is where everything will change over time. You would think, looking at social media, that the entire 9-episode season of The Last of Us has already come out. The buzz and commendations have consumed the internet already. It's no doubt that Sony is very happy with the outcome, and you will likely hear that Season 2 has already been greenlit within the coming weeks. Naughty Dog will find that their focus is clearly in the right place. Should the success of the show continue on this path, then the consumer demographic of the IP will be covering all bases. As such, Sony and Naughty Dog will want to act accordingly to maximize the benefits of the amount of eyes on them. There shouldn't be a doubt in anyone's mind that The Last of Us Part 3 is the next single-player experience that will launch out of the studio. The entire landscape of how well this game can do has changed dramatically. There's been constant conversation on whether or not the risk Part 2 took hurt the game's sales. It was promised from the day the game was announced that its fan base would be split. Some question if this would be taken into consideration should the franchise continue. But the astronomical success of the HBO show's debut pilot has already convinced many to partake in the games. On Amazon, the PS4 versions of the games have already shot up into the bestsellers list, with Part 2 holding the #1 spot, followed by multiple SKUs of the 2014 remaster. On the PS5 list, Part 1 has climbed into the top 20 but still suffers from a lack of stock from the holiday season. By the time Part 3 comes out, Season 2 of the show will be well underway, if not already aired, and the amount of people waiting impatiently for what happens next will have but a single avenue to go down: the video game. Neil Druckmann has stated that the HBO show will not run into the issue Game of Thrones had. They do not plan to create beyond the already delivered narrative of the games. As such, the amount of people waiting to buy into the conclusion of Ellie's story will have likely far more than doubled. The sales of a third game have potential to more than eclipse the second. It's no longer in the same environment. Naughty Dog is playing a far different game. If that's not enough, before getting a Part 3, the long-awaited Factions multiplayer will be well underway as a live service, holding the attention of anyone who is willing while they wait for another season of TV, or a game. The debut of Episode 1 is very telling for what you can expect should Naughty Dog and HBO optimize and scale properly. The Last of Us is a machine, and everything is about to change.